Hi, friends, welcome back. Today we are chatting about Rental Family, a very sweet little film that premiered at TIFF where I got to see it. And I think a lot of people expected this one to win the audience award because it just seemed prime for it. A story that seemed very heartwarming, something very sweet, about to tug at the heartstrings. That's like what the TIFF Audience Award is for, and it somehow did not win. However, that doesn't mean that this is not a fun little movie because it's very sweet, and I'm very excited to chat with you about it. It's been a few years since we have had a Hikari film to watch, so that is always very welcome. And she paints such a beautiful love letter to Japan and its people and culture through this little comedy drama film. Rental Family stars Brendan Fraser, Takehiro Hira, Mari Yamamoto, Shannon Gorman, and Akira Emoto. This film tells a very interesting story, and it's focused on one of the more fascinating parts of Japanese culture, where an American actor who is struggling to find work starts working for a Japanese rental family service. And this is a real concept in Japan where people can rent family members, friends, people for funerals, whatever it may be, to stand in and be that person for them, whether it's at a wedding or at an event or a karaoke night, what have you. And so this American actor starts working for this service, and he gets to stand in a number of different situations, one of which is pretending to be a journalist to honor a film director whose family feel like society might be forgetting about him. He also plays a father for a young girl who does not know her father, and he becomes that stand in for her. Werner Herzog covered this topic in his film Family Romance LLC, and I'm sure that that film was quite an interesting introduction to this whole culture and part of society. And so Rental Family gets to kind of expand on that in many more heartwarming ways, I would say. I think Brendan Fraser is the perfect actor for a film such as this because you really need someone who is very charming, is very charismatic, who has a very kind face, and those are all things that I associate with him. As he plays Philip, we get to see a bit of how he is quite an outsider in Japan. I mean, he is usually the tallest person on the subway. He is also usually the only white person. So he already is playing a little bit of a disadvantage with that. But in general, he is just kind of alone. He doesn't really know what he's still probably doing in Tokyo. He had a very successful toothpaste commercial years and years ago, and that's what people know him as. But the years since have not been very kind to him when it comes to his career, so he's a little bit stuck. And so this rental family service, like how it serves a very important purpose for a lot of people and their lives, it serves quite an important purpose for his too. And I just really enjoyed seeing the way that he connects with so many different people, and he gets to see just how important this service is for them. There is quite a beautiful scene featuring a young woman who hires him to be her husband at her wedding, and we all kind of think that it's probably just like some fun little gag just to kind of get away from her parents, to have them stop bothering her about getting married, the usual stuff. But then we get to see that it's so much more for her. She's not able to fully be herself around her family and to express and share with them what her sexual orientation is. And after her wedding night, we get to see her reunite with her partner. And it was just such a lovely feeling. And I think a lot of people in the room probably went from, what a strange, silly little concept, to, oh, this is actually something so beautiful, and it is very meaningful and just allows people to kind of be themselves and get an experience that they normally wouldn't have. So I fully appreciated that with this film. As this film goes along, and as he starts playing the father figure to young Mia, I quite enjoyed seeing the way that their bond grew and changed. Of course, there was a bit of hatred from her when she realized that this is her dad who just was never around. And then she kind of warms up to him, and I really love that relationship that forms, even though I know that a lot of people will probably find that it's a bit mean to do this to a child, because at the end of the day, this isn't her dad, and when this service ends, he'll just be another person who leaves her in her life. So I can understand that a lot of people will have some trepidations with that and not really like everything that happens with that. But I think it's handled in a very nice way. I do agree that there probably is a bit manipulative with this child and her emotions, but I think where we eventually end up with that storyline, it is very sweet. And then the storyline with Kiku, this long-time retired filmmaker, that one really caught me by surprise, because at first I wasn't really sure what they were going for with this, but these two just go on a very beautiful trip to his hometown and where he grew up, and he is after one specific thing, and I just thought it played out very beautifully. So I was a big fan of that. And I also thought that Akira Emoto played this character so wonderfully, and I was quite charmed by him. In general, I can feel so much love and warmth that Hikari has for Japan and Tokyo and the culture. I mean, there are so many shots of just normal everyday life going on around people. It's people just going to work, it's going on the transportation system, it's just kind of going about and doing their normal everyday lives, and there's such beauty in that. It kind of reminded me of Wim Wenders' Perfect Days, where it's just kind of following everyday life. That one is specifically for a public toilet cleaner, but we do just get to kind of observe his everyday life and see how the nature and beauty around him inspires him. And so I always really love touches like that in movies. But aside from this film being centered on this rental family service and a lot of these sweet moments that we do for sure get in with it, I really appreciate this very unique approach to talking about mental health that we get in this film. In Japan, mental health is still considered a very taboo subject, and I know that the country as a whole has relatively high suicide rates, so it is clearly something that people are struggling with. They may not be able to get the resources that they need, or they just feel like they can't and they shouldn't, because what will somebody else say? And it's so interesting to see that this is the type of service that they would rather utilize, and gives them that type of outlet to express themselves, or even to just be able to talk to someone and feel like it is okay to do it. I really like that this film approaches that and discusses that in quite a unique way. And again, we see a lot of different examples of people who, at the end of the day, they just kind of need someone to be there for them, to listen to them, to just kind of interact with them, play video games, as Philip does with a young man in the film. One movie that I thought about as it relates to mental health and maybe people just not fully being able to express themselves and get the help that they need was Koreeda's Still Walking. It's centered on a family that still very much has a lot of difficult and tough feelings to process when it comes to the death of a loved one. So, as I mentioned, I watched this at TIFF, and I think for the most part there were positive reactions to this film. I do know that there were a few people who just were kind of on it. I think they probably thought it was a little too overly sweet, like the sweetener was on extra mode. For myself personally, I think I was fine with it. I never thought that it was really getting into overly cheesy territory. Yes, there are quite sweet and kind and lovely things that happen in this film, but I think Hikari does a very good job of balancing it and never going a little too over the edge or being too manipulative with our emotions, anything of that sort. So I thought it worked just fine for me. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed these performances. Marie Yamamoto, she has a wonderful turn in this film. I do kind of wish that we got more with her and maybe there was more of a spotlight on her, but she's just wonderful. Takehiro Hira as well has quite an interesting reveal later on in the film, and I was quite taken aback by that, and I felt a lot of emotion seeing that as well. And again, it fits in with these grander themes that this film covers. Overall, I give Rental Family 3.5 out of 5 stars. I did not shed tears, which again, surprising for me at times, but I'm excited to revisit this one to see if it hits a little differently and if it really does get some waterworks going for me. Let me know what you guys think about this movie, and we will chat next time for the next film. Thanks everyone for watching. See you here next time.